Today we will be talking about Love Alarm and Nevertheless, but more importantly, the dark timeline of how they can be connected by this one character. Whoever this dark and twisted murder is. Alright, so for some warnings ahead, and for me not to get death threats or to get slammed in the future, this is all just playful, just creativity right now, and also a spoiler warning if you haven't seen these shows, by the way, which I will probably include season 1 of Nevertheless and season 1 and 2 of Love Alarm. Alright, so first off, we're gonna start off with Love Alarm. If you haven't seen Love Alarm, I would really recommend watching it if you're into like some romance high school type stuff. But Love Alarm is basically where this high school student just developed this app where it somehow reads your feelings, and basically if you have feelings for someone, it's able to read that, and then if you're 10 meters of the person you have a crush on, then your phone will like beep, and it's just like a common thing going on throughout the whole show, and it mostly follows these three high school students where they just form this weird just love triangle, just back and forth drama, and the basic high school stuff, you know. Okay, so basically one of our main protagonists, Jojo, falls for this one dude, Suno, who happens to come, he just happens to be like the son of a celebrity, and I think his dad was like a politician or a governor or something. It didn't really go well for him once he got into a relationship with Jojo, because then he started making some dumb choices, and so his dad didn't really like the publicity it was all drawing in, and so he had threatened to send Suno away, and Jojo, overhearing this, she just had no choice but to break up with him, just because she thought that it was her fault that all this was happening, and she just wanted to keep him there close. And they did break up, and they just had a little time skip, and Suno ended up having a best friend who, mind you, was there when all this took place, and he's here now, and he had feelings for Jojo throughout the entire time, but backed off just because it's like the bro code. But he ended up swooping in, and he swept her off her feet, and they ended up falling for each other, and basically this is where I believe Suno's villain story had began. Alright, so whenever I first got into this show, he just seemed normal to me. He seemed like the usual popular kid, handsome type that all the girls wanted, like possibly even some guys. But I started to notice some of his manipulative like tendencies he had. Like, he would often try to control things like happening around him, and he just seemed a bit off to me, and it just made me feel uncomfortable. There's this one thing in particular in the beginning where he just stalked his best friend, stalking his crush, and you gotta watch the show to get the context of that, but his best friend is basically following his crush, and he was following his best friend following the crush, and that just seemed really off to me, and it was really strange. And another example of how he just manipulates everything around him is the way he was just like treating Jojo as if she was like a puppet. Like, what the heck happened to this girl? Like, years later, you do not see any. You barely see any side characters. Like, any of the side characters that were there before, just gone. And this dude, the ex of JoJo, like, you just see him disappear. Like, after everything that happened, you just never see him. Which, by the way, Sun gets into a fight with this dude after some video gets out of them kissing. Basically, they got exposed, and the ex just tried to come and he tried to beat up Sung. And my theory is, the reason Sun didn't fight back is just because he was secretly hiding some vampiric powers he had, or demonic powers or something. And I'll explain this later on, but bear with me, guys. Alright, so my theory is, what happened during this time is whenever Sung, he ended up murdering them, any of the side characters, and that's why you don't ever hear from them or see them ever again. And I feel like the reason he stayed was because JoJo, he wanted to still get with her because he was legitimately in love, and that's the first girl he's ever loved. And once her and Hayoung got together, he just went with this other girl who was just trying so hard to get with Sung, but he had no feelings for her, and so he just went with her. And I feel like he harvested her, and then after he harvested her, he went on a run. Which, by the way, I just pulled up her name, and her name was Lee Yuk Jo. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I feel bad for her, honestly. She was trying so hard to win over Sun's heart, and in the end, she thought she did. It really seemed like she did, but sadly, that's not the way it went. Now, this is where Nevertheless comes in. Now, his name isn't Suno anymore. It's Park Ji-yeon. I'm just calling him Ji-yeon. So, isn't it weird that you don't really hear a bunch of background from Ji-yeon, except the fact that his mom is just like older now, and that's like the only background you get, and it's very vague. And the one time he met his mom, she ended up buying him a car. And who do you think has that much money? Of course, his mom, back from Love Alarm. Now, you can see clearly, if you compare him, he has a taste, and you can't tell me it's not a coincidence. Oh, and another background you get from Park Ji-yeon is that he's been messing around with a lot of girls, and he has just like a bunch of them just lined up. Like, you can clearly see on his phone that he just has a list of them, and I don't think he's just after them just because what you think he is. I think he's after them to harvest them, and he just stopped at this one girl just because it really reminded him of JoJo. Also, just like in the last series, Love Alarm, these girls go missing. Like, a lot of the girls he was apparently messing with are completely gone, and they're just not in the story anymore. Like, how is no one questioning this? There's just one girl who's apparently his ex, who may or may not be his accomplice, and she just moves back to the US or something, possibly just to get away from him. Alright, it's my bad, guys. With further investigation, I think this girl works for the government, and she was just reporting back to the US, and just bear with me. I'll explain later. Now, Nevertheless is also a K-drama that follows a high school love story of how this girl named Yunabi falls for this dude that's been sleeping around forever with like every other girl named Park Ji-yeon, which happens to be Suno. And it's basically what you'd expect from a K-drama high school type of thing. They have like cute couples here and there, and cute moments here and there. And then of course the drama, which is needed. But overall, it was a very wholesome show. I would really recommend watching it. Also, if you are into that kind of stuff. Which, by the way, best couple of the show, no contest. But besides the rumors going around of all the girls he's fooled around with, there's not really much you know else about Jiyeon. And he seems oddly good at everything he's done, as if he's been around for years to pick up a bunch of skills. And another thing to note is that his flirting skills are very similar to Sunho's. Also, he has a weird obsession for butterflies, which he has a lot of. To us, as the viewer, it may seem like these butterflies are a metaphor to girls, but if you look deeply, I feel like these butterflies mean something else. Maybe it could be a metaphor to all the victims he's had. Maybe they are his victims. Maybe he has some weird power where he turns them into butterflies. Alright, back to the time chart. Which, by the way, I was rewatching the video and then I realized I kind of sound like a broken record, kind of pointing the same things over again, so I apologize for that. It's my first theorizing video. Hope you guys don't mind. Be patient with me. So here we're just going to go ahead and we're going to put the start of Nevertheless and then the end of Nevertheless up here, just because not really much happened. It didn't really have a time skip in between or anything. And we pretty much saw everything that was going on, unlike a Love Alarm where they have a little time skip going on. Which, by the way, these two do end up getting together at the end, or so we think. And how bad would it have been if he just lost to the other guy again? Like, that would have been like a stab in the heart for this dude. And for context purposes, what I mean is, just like in the last series, Sunho had a little competition going on with this other dude that really had a crush on the main protagonist, a girl. I forgot her name already. I haven't really gone into detail as much as this one, but it's just because it's like gonna be really vague compared to Love Alarm. But yeah, he had competition, and this time he didn't lose. And if he did, that would have been hilarious, and I would have felt bad for him. But he actually won the heart of this one. Back to the ex that made it back safely to the US, or let's assume she failed her mission to report back about this monstrosity, or she did make it, but she was too late to stop whatever infection was gonna go on, right? So that leads us to Sweet Home, which is basically about the group of residents that survive in this kind of zombie apocalyptic type thing, where it's not really a zombie infection, it's more like a monstrous infection where it just comes in different shapes and sizes, and it does remind me of zombie apocalypse type thing, but also an alien-ish type thing, and I highly recommend, actually, and I'm really hoping for season 2. I really enjoyed the show. Which, by the way, they had some insane designs on the monsters, so that was amazing to see on screen. You can clearly see here his hair is longer, and in this series you get no background whatsoever, and that's extremely sus. This dude lives alone and has been clearly for a long time, by the way his apartment is. So I feel like this takes like years after Nevertheless, possibly after he killed his last girlfriend because she did not satisfy his needs that JoJo was doing. This dude has not aged a day, and for crying out loud, he does not talk very often in this show. At the end of Sweet Home, you see his true form, and you can clearly see why he was so obsessed with butterflies. and he turns into one. And I always thought that was sus, but it makes sense now. I know. By the end of Sweet Home, somehow the FBI knows exactly where he's at, and it's just very weird how they know, but is it weird? No, because I feel like the ex played her role as a good spy, and that's exactly how they know, and that's where we get our explanation at the end of Sweet Home of how they knew exactly where he was at. Him and his group end up getting arrested, and it pretty much ends there. I guess sort of foreshadowing season 2 of Sweet Home, so we have yet to see. But yes, this is my theory of how this all connects. And if by the way, it was all jokes. It's just like a funny little theory I had in my head. You don't have to take it seriously, but I think it's funny to think about. And yeah, guys, this has been my Overlord talk. Which, by the way, I almost forgot about the timeline. For here, we're just gonna write the beginning of Sweet Home, and here we're just gonna write the not the end, but where Suno gets captured, and I'm pretty sure that's where we can end it now, guys. By the way, for those who are new to my channel, I'd appreciate if you check out my other content, like my ranking tiers, and they're just a little silly, my little recasting thing for anime, and my other gaming stuff also, where I play Five Nights at Freddy's, Minecraft, and maybe some other stuff. Recommendations would be nice. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed, and don't forget to hit that like button, and peace out.